Steve Jobs once said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." Most people hear this sentence and forget it within minutes. But those who truly understand it, they change their entire destiny. Today, I want to take you on a journey through the mindset, the mentality, and the deeper philosophy of Steve Jobs, the man who transformed technology, design, and the way we live our daily lives. Steve Jobs didn't become great because he was the smartest person in the room. He became great because he had clarity. He knew what mattered. He knew what he wanted to build. And he had the courage to chase it when the world told him he was wrong. That clarity is the first lesson most people ignore. Jobs believed that focus is not about saying yes to important things. It is about saying no to 1,000 distractions. He said no to unnecessary features, no to pointless meetings, no to things that didn't align with his vision. And this is where most people fail. They say yes to too many things, and as a result, they go nowhere. Steve understood something powerful. Focus creates greatness. Distraction destroys it. The second lesson from Steve Jobs is one that 99% of people never take seriously. You must love what you do. Jobs said, "The only way to do great work is to love what you do." He didn't say like Italiano. He didn't say tolerated. He said love. Why? Because every meaningful path is filled with frustration, failure, and doubt. If you don't love what you do, you will quit the moment life punches you in the face. Love is the secret fuel that keeps you moving when your world falls apart. Steve's own life proves this. After building Apple from nothing, he was fired from his own company. Most people would collapse under that kind of betrayal, but Steve didn't. He said it was the best thing that ever happened to him. It freed him to be creative again. It forced him to rebuild himself from scratch. And during that time, he started Next and transformed Pixar into the world's most influential animation studio. Without being fired, he wouldn't have built the foundations that later saved Apple. This leads us to the third lesson. Failure is not the end. Failure is feedback. Jobs embraced failure because he understood that innovation requires risk, and risk requires courage. He once explained that, "If you look closely, you will realize that the people who do big things are not smarter. They're just willing to try more times than others. They're willing to fail, learn, and keep moving." The fourth lesson Steve Jobs lived by is simplicity. Not simple thinking. Simply design, simple execution, simple purpose. He believed that simplicity requires deep understanding. Anyone can make something complicated, but only someone with clarity can make something simple. When the iPod came out, it had one goal: 1,000 songs in your pocket. Not 100 features, not 50 buttons, just one clear purpose. That level of simplicity is why Apple's different, and it's why Steve Jobs is remembered as a visionary, not just a businessman. But if there is one lesson that changed the world, it is this: think differently. Jobs believed that systems, rules, and traditions often limit our imagination. He encouraged people to break the pattern, to think beyond the obvious, to question everything. He understood that true creativity comes from connecting ideas from different worlds: technology, art, design, psychology, storytelling. Steve Jobs was not a computer engineer. He was a creator who blended technology with humanity. That's why Apple products feel alive. They are not just machines. They are experiences. The next lesson from Steve Jobs is about trusting your intuition. He said, "Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become." Logic is important, but intuition is the silent voice that guides you to your purpose. Jobs followed his intuition when he dropped out of college. He followed it when he took calligraphy classes. He followed it when he built Apple in a garage. Each small step seemed meaningless at the time, but later, everything connected. And that is why he often said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." Another lesson that shaped Steve Jobs' life was urgency. After facing cancer, he realized how fragile and unpredictable life is. He lived with the awareness that every day could be his last. And that awareness gave him power. He didn't waste time on things that didn't matter. He didn't chase approval. He didn't live by society's expectations. He worked on what he believed would push humanity forward. When you accept that your time is limited, you start living differently. You start living intentionally. One more lesson we learned from Steve Jobs is obsession with excellence. Jobs never settled for good enough. He pushed people, pushed teams, pushed himself, not because he wanted perfection, but because he wanted meaning. He believed that what you create is a reflection of who you are. And if you leave something behind, let it be something great. That mindset is why Apple products became symbols of quality, beauty, and innovation. And finally, Steve Jobs taught us the value of legacy. He never cared about being the richest man in the cemetery. He cared about building something that would outlive him. Something that would inspire generations. Something that would remind people that creativity and courage can move the world. That is why thousands of people today still study his life, his speeches, his principles. He is gone, but his message remains alive. Make something you are proud of. So what do we take from Steve Jobs today? Focus on what matters. Love what you do. Don't fear failure. Simplify everything. Think differently. Trust your intuition. Work with urgency. Build with excellence. And leave something meaningful behind. Steve Jobs believed that ordinary people could do extraordinary things if they refused to settle. You don't need permission to build the life you want. You don't need perfect timing. You just need courage. So, take the steps, take the risks, and never forget the words Steve left for the world. Asterisk. Asterisk, stay hungry. Stay foolish. Asterisk. Asterisk.